Hello and welcome to Talking Simulator. I am Cameron.
And I'm Corey.
That was weird. My brain just went completely offline there for a little while.
I'm a little discombobulated today.
Yeah.
I gotta admit that today is kind of weird as far as days go.
Yeah, anything in particular for you?
Just the accumulation of stress and fatigue, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, fair enough. Weird, I've never had a power,
Fluctuation.
yeah, like a power flicker like that before occur inside my head, and that was...
Must be nice.
Yeah, maybe I should try to induce one later. That was kind of cool. Found a new drug, everyone. And with that graceful segue, we're here to talk a bit about Disco Elysium, which we've spent the last 11 weeks?
I lost count.
Yeah, let's say 11 weeks playing.
Let's say that.
And it was great. It was a great game. GOTY 2019. At least IMHO.
I'm still on the Pathologic 2 train.
Pathologic 2? Yeah, I need to buy that. I'm such a bad game critic. I need... Also, did Heaven's Vault come out in 2019 or was that 2018?
I think that was the year before.
Okay. I love that one screenshot that always goes around from Pathologic 2, where it's just the same answer.
I threw the baby.
Yeah. I
have a baby?
Yeah. Or, yeah, it just italicizes different words in the same sentence. But it was like, I had a baby? I had a baby? I had a baby? Something like that. Anyways, it was really good. Where to start with Disco Elysium? Like with many, when I was doing my English degree, you would write a term paper, and that term paper would be like laser focused on one line of poetry, right? Or a single exchange in a
You'd
play.
be writing like an argumentative essay, and you have to like have supporting evidence for your thoughts that you have.
But it's been like a million years since I've done any of that, and honestly those skills are pretty rusty, and I'm not sure that's exactly the right take here for what I want to talk about. So our argument in Talking Sim is that games are, fundamentally part of our culture and are worth examining. And one of the other angles we take on that, or that I take on that frequently, is that it's always worth examining the things that you like critically.
Yes.
And being honest about them, because fundamentally, right, you might like get out to the opera once every couple of years, or once a year, maybe once every few months. You might go and see a play once in a while. You might decide that it's time to see the film that everyone's talking about, or read the book that won a big prize this year, whether it's the Man Booker or the Nobel or something
Hugo's or something.
Yeah. But honestly, those aren't the majority of your interactions with culture.
No.
Right? Where the rubber meets the road is the stuff that you do day in and day out. Right? And that's the stuff that you kind of need to pay the most attention to, because that will form... Pop culture is the soul of our culture.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the highbrow stuff, the sophisticated stuff, and that isn't to say that lowbrow stuff isn't sophisticated, because the ways that it works is actually quite interesting. But that's kind of like
that's
one
got
branch.
the biggest influence on you.
Yeah.
Like your day to day, the stuff that forms ruts in your head out of the swirling mass of culture.
Yeah, so the popular stuff is the balance, right? It's where the soul resides, if you can say such a thing exists. The intangible behavioral aspects of things, maybe is a good way to put it. The things that are so deeply ingrained that you have a hard time seeing them.
Especially the things that are like the defaults or the safe options.
Yes, exactly. Like one thing that I stumbled across online somewhere, I think. It may have been in Jacob's recaps of Battlestar Galactica way back on Television Without Pity in the mid to late thousands.
Fair.
Was he had a phrase that was, how do you explain wet to a fish? Right? How
there's that like David Foster Wallace speech. This is water.
Yeah. Presumably he got it from somewhere. Point being, the things that you like are worth examining. So what does that mean for Disco Elysium? And what that means is like, what does the frame? Why a game?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How does this work as a game? Where does the player input drop in to make it something that is unique to a video game instead of like a novel or a play or a film or an album? Which I all think are things that Harry would have enjoyed, but that's neither here nor there. So, what are the decisions the player makes that makes it interesting?
Right.
Right? The first one it calls upon you to make is, what is your focus skill?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What is your exceptional skill? And we chose one called Inland Empire because I think I got quite excited about this, but it feels very much like the Dale Cooper
Yeah.
skill. And if you're not familiar with Dale Cooper, he is the main character of a TV series from the early 90s called Twin Peaks, which got 2 seasons and then a 3rd season in 2017, 2018,
Yeah, I still haven't watched it.
which was profoundly apocalyptic. But Inland Empire is a skill that allows you to basically have an intuitive sense for the objects around you.
Yeah.
Right, which is very different from things like visual calculus, which lets you examine a crime scene and kind of Sherlock Holmes reconstruct what happened and draw the mental lines to recreate things. Inland Empire is about examining the character of objects. And I didn't get this scene, but I did, a bunch of reading on the game and found out that in your dream with Dolores Day,
Right.
if you take the correct conversational options, she will talk to you about one of the reasons why she left. And one of the reasons why she left you is your key skill or your signature skill.
Oh.
So if you have, she, and this is where it hits particularly hard, is that she highlights your strength as a negative, right? Your singular identifiable, the core of your being, as a reason to like maybe get GTFO. And she cites Inland Empire because you would pick up and talk to everyday objects, right? And she found that like eventually quite upsetting.
Right.
So we get to choose that.
Yeah.
Right? We get to, and the subtext I feel of the game is that Harry or Dubois, the reason we skill up and remember things so quickly and develop our skills so quickly, I feel the implication is that Harrier, before he had his, retrograde amnesia, had max skills.
Right.
In all of these things, right? So we're just rediscovering these pathways instead of forging anything necessarily new. And the way that we reconstruct the person we are, given our limited resources, is the person that we want to be, right? We have been given the rare gift of a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah. There's points where it's like you have a headache because you're going through withdrawal and that affects some things, or you get cravings and you have to see things and remember that you really want them.
Right, like one of the first quests we're given is get drugs, get alcohol, get cigarettes.
Yeah.
And that's from electrochemistry being like, pardon me, hello? I need these things to continue operating, otherwise we're going to have problems. So the person that we recreate is, in large part, I mean, because of the nature of the game, white checks are checks that you can retry as long as you have put skill points, as long as you have leveled up, essentially.
Yeah, there's some dialogue things that unlock them again, like new information, but mostly it's through your skill ups.
Right. So there is kind of like an evolutionary pressure to develop Harry along the pathways of the white checks.
Yeah.
Right? So early on, you need, in order to deal with Measurehead or get past Measurehead, you need a certain set of skills. There's an early pressure from electrochemistry.
Yep.
Right? If you want to get rid of the expression. There is checks with Kuno.
Yep.
And those all affect your early personality. Like on day one, there's already a tremendous amount of pressure just to be able to navigate certain situations, to recover or uncover or develop certain skills, which is interesting, right? Because you don't have to do that. You can just take those lumps, right? Maybe you just want to be like, maybe you want to max out encyclopedia
Yeah.
on day one and just get little bits of trivia about everything. Oh, that was the other one that the example used was that if you have very high encyclopedia, Dolores Day says that you only spoke in trivia,
Yep. Yeah, I've had that conversation with her.
which is like brutal, right? And then you also have your clothing, right? As long as we're talking about recovering the person that you are or moving between different versions of yourself,
Yep.
let's talk about clothing, because that's part of it is that, clothing makes the man,
Yep.
right? That you can change what you're wearing and have different effects. And sometimes the reasons are kind of like funny, right? Like the itchy pants hammer your composure and savoir-faire, I think.
I think so, yeah.
It's very difficult to be cool with itchy pants. But sometimes they're actually quite interesting, like the fact that the ceramic cuirass hammers your empathy.
Yeah.
Like the more pieces of armor you wear, the lower your empathy gets.
And the Helmdollerman shirt like gives you physical instrument but hammers your authority.
Yeah, because nobody can take you seriously
It's
when
like you're wearing a child's shirt.
Yeah, it'd be like going out wearing a Warhammer shirt, which I certainly have never done. So a lot of like, yeah, some of those effects come from their effects on you, right? Like when you're wearing the cavalry boots, you're actually like they're lifts
Yeah.
with high heels so that you can actually see further, and it gives you a bonus to perception. But a lot of them are the way that people see you, right? Like a lot of the police uniform clothing, like the police commander's jacket,
Yeah.
right, affect your authority,
Yep.
and that's just from wearing a uniform, right, and being a voice or being seen to be somebody that you maybe aren't quite yet, right, or maybe don't want to recover being. Sorry, I've totally dominated this conversation, and
Well, you wanted to know where to start on
Yeah.
talking about the things, and like the white checks are a really good place to start because they drive the player a lot. Like they're where you see opportunity.
okay, yes,
Really. Like sometimes the red checks, but usually it's the white checks where you're just like, I really want to know what the deal with this expression is. Encyclopedia, get on it. Come on.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I also love the voice that the different skills give you, because as you develop them, obviously you start passing more checks and they take on a more central role to who you are, because as you pass more checks, then naturally they just spend more time talking to you,
Yeah.
right? So you start to get into this feedback loop where maybe you don't see the other options, but as long as you're like, maybe if your physical instrument is quite high, everything starts to look like a physical instrument check.
Yeah, authority will totally screw with you if you get your authority up high. Because it's just like, you want to arrest everyone, you want to be confrontational, and Half-Light makes you afraid.
Yeah, I've heard
things.
that. Half-Light is actually quite an interesting skill because it will keep you alive, quite often to your own detriment, right? It will make you run away. But in most situations, Half-Light's instincts are not wrong. They're just centered around survival.
Yeah.
But yeah, like because there is the one character who actually operates on this personality theory. The police special, what is he, a special investigator?
Trent Hiddleston?
Yeah, Trent Hiddleston, who quite clearly is like, your best friend forever if you've got high encyclopedia and like all the other nerd skills, right? Because he becomes quite excited when you talk to him about like his field of expertise.
The Wompty Domp Dom Center. Oh yeah, and pain threshold. Eoston Titan points out that pain threshold makes you want to get hurt.
Really?
Yeah, pain threshold will push you into uncomfortable situations like reading notes from Dora and
Oh, really?
yeah.
I've also heard that not only do you have like skill related things where when they're high or low you get sometimes quite dramatically different results, but your health meters, like your health meter when it's low, certain things become active, and your morale meter when it's low, certain things can become active.
Interesting.
I saw a video where somebody, because their morale was at 1, they were able to drunk dial Dora,
Yep, you can do that.
but it's only available when your morale is very, very low.
Okay.
At least that's what I heard.
Because I think that's mostly just an interfacing check where you're
Oh,
trying
really?
to dial numbers from memory.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. I'm probably wrong there then. Um,
But I don't know because a lot of the story checks are blind. Like you get to see the passive stat check rolls,
mhm.
whether they pass or fail, but you don't get to see like what items might unlock certain checks. Like if you have the green ape pen, then Lena's more friendly towards you.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Um, so mechanically, the game forces you to. You only get the tools the game gives you, right? Unless you're doing some weird ass glitch run.
No one's doing that.
Yeah, it's certainly not looking for an achievement. No. Um, and the tools the game gives you are these facets of your personality, and the way that you develop them affects the way that you interact with the world. So it gives you a bit of initial data, right? Like maybe that these checks are the ones that you want to pass, because we're gamers and we want to pass checks, despite
Yep.
the fact that failing checks can quite often also have very interesting results and give you alternate paths. But so you get a bit of, as a computation, when I did my research, and because I'm me, I'm always going to run home to mama and talk about my research. You get a seed, a starting point, and then it starts a feedback loop,
Okay.
right? Where, you want empathy checks with Kuno,
Yep.
or you want, is it physical instrument?
Yeah, for Measurehead or again Kuno, I think.
Yeah. So those can start you on a path.
Yep.
And then we haven't even talked about the thought closet yet, or the thought cabinet, which is modifiers to your modifiers, right?
Yep.
As and these are all like things that you can entertain and develop and muse on for a couple of hours, and then they unlock bonuses, which are because your personality changes when you unlock things in your thought cabinet.
Yes.
Some of which are, that have interesting mechanical effects. Like one of the early ones allows you to zoom further out
Yeah.
with the camera because you have a broader perspective and can conceive of more of the city.
And there's even some of the clothing gives you bonuses to your thoughts and not to your stats.
Like the communard parka and hat give you bonuses to
Communism.
Mazovian socioeconomics, and then the brown suit gives you bonuses to I forget what the liberalism economic theory is, or the
Alternate modes of taxation.
yeah,
Or indirect modes of taxation.
moralism.
Yeah.
Yeah, indirect modes of taxation, I think. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. So what? Right? The so what here is that I probably should have worked this out beforehand. It's okay. This is all interesting, right? How do you take this from interesting to something that is actionable, or at least discussable, right? What does it mean, or what could it possibly mean, right? Why does this make this a better game than something else? And I think one of the answers there is that like a text or sorry, like a novel or a play or a film or an album has like isn't collaborative,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we can talk a lot about like critical theory and the way that all art is essentially collaborative because there's an interpretive act going on when you read it, right? This is why things can mean different things to different people, which is strange, but you know, it's a phenomenon that you can't really argue against happening. So we as players have also an authorial stake in what the player does,
Yes.
and the way that they approach the world and what all of that can mean, right? Whether we play Harry as an aggressive, violent, authoritarian, and even fascist cop is very different to what it looks like if we play him as an empathetic, sorry cop. Right? Like, I love the way that Kim says that apologizing for everything is not, he doesn't say it's wrong, but he says it's not an effective mode of communication for a police officer.
Right.
Which I think is wonderful. Because he's like, I mean, obviously we're going to get things wrong, but we can't tell them that. Right? They need to believe in us.
And again, if you push your empathy too high, you start crying.
Jesus.
People make you cry.
Oh, God.
We got a question from chat about whether or not we've obtained the spirit bomb, and no spirit bombs.
There's a spirit. We can Goku?
I don't know. Maybe it's related to the cocaine skull.
There's a cocaine
There's
skull?
a cocaine skull.
Okay, there's so much of this game I haven't seen. Apparently, because also, spoiler, I suppose we should say this is a 100% spoiled.
This is going to be more spoiled than the previous streams where we were just playing the game.
Yeah, because we'll have to talk about things that we didn't even see. One of them is that the bottle of alcohol that your Inland Empire necktie, wants you to buy. It's like, hey, that one. You should get that one.
It's the blue alcohol bottle.
Yeah.
It's the only task information is that the necktie is preparing for the end of things.
Right, because the necktie, if you don't get the gun from Ruby, and you don't find your own gun from the pigs, Inland Empire tries to save your life by sacrificing itself. Which is your necktie will be like, dunk me in the bottle of alcohol and light me on fire. And you get a Molotov cocktail for the mercenary tribunal.
I'm working on that one for my hardcore playthrough.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the spirit bomb.
Yeah.
Spirit bomb Molotov. Right.
I just haven't done it.
It's a bomb made out of spirits.
Yep.
I get it now. I get it. I understand. But yeah, the necktie is preparing for the end. That's wonderful. Now, narratively, like, what does the game do? It does a ton of things. Or I suppose we should talk about mechanics.
Like,
see if there's anything else in the mechanics.
It's talking about, like, this game. Did you want to talk about other games that it's influenced by, like Planescape Torment, and kind of like how it does things differently? Because it's flavored very similar to something like Planescape, or I think Kentucky Route Zero is the other one. Kentucky Route Zero is like a point-and-click adventure game, whereas this is an RPG sort of in the middle between the two things. Because there's like dramatic scenes that are played out in dialogue instead of like party-based combat. Right.
Yeah, like maybe we should talk a bit about why this is an RPG instead of an adventure game.
Yeah.
And yeah, the combat is kind of central to RPGs, which I feel, for better or worse, have a lot of their roots in D&D. Right?
Yeah.
Computer-based RPGs.
One-to-one relationship there.
Yeah, like, and the ones that grew out of a different, I want to say like a different, like,
just that
taxonomy.
wargaming background.
Yes, yeah,
for
wargaming
mainframe
background.
games.
Yes. And that is definitely one way of handling confrontation. Disco Elysium goes another way, where it's still doing like a lot of dice rolling and checks, but they are social interactions or observational interactions, right? Like, I feel that reconstructing the lynching plays very much like a boss fight, right? Where it has layered checks and
Yeah.
conversation options that you have to take the correct path through in order to reconstruct things very carefully. And that can happen as early as day one, right? That might be like your introductory boss fight. Oh, hello.
For Grant?
Yeah.
He's not here, but we can sign for it.
No signature needed.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
We
Thank
just
you very
got a
much.
package.
We. Ooh. Picante. This one is from Bill Sender. Never met him.
Never met him. I don't know no bills. Landscape. Combat. Like, the combat in the Infinity Engine games often feels separate from all of the dialogue and character stuff. Like, it's a completely different mode of playing in the game, whereas this all happens in the same mode.
Right, yeah, and even when you do get combat, and I don't know if there's any other combats other than the Mercenary Tribunal, but they aren't combats in the traditional, like, D&D sense, where
Well,
you
there's
roll
like at
initiative
the
and-
beginning when if you try to dodge paying your bill with Gart, there's a scene where you like flip him off,
Yeah.
and you run into Lena, and there's like a few checks in there that affect whether or not you just like bowl over this old lady in a wheelchair or not,
Okay, yes.
or whether or not you just fail to run away.
Oh. Also, I love the thing after the Mercenary Tribunal where you and Gart and Kim are all just like nodding at each other.
Yeah,
Very like stoically.
yeah, stoic mans. Yeah.
Um So okay, yeah, it's Forebears, Planescape Torment, which I only ever played a little bit of, to be perfectly honest. I never got all the way through Planescape Torment.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important game that I should probably come back and play. It's on GOG.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
So what I meant when I said it felt a lot like Planescape was that it felt like, the viewpoint and the world and the aspect, or the waking up in a strange world that you don't recognize.
With amnesia. Yeah.
And with a guide, right?
Yep.
Kim is kind of like the person who is expecting you to do a thing and can't or won't tell you what that thing is that you need to do. But maybe you should do it. And you're like, right, I'm a police officer, and that means with my, as a gamer, knowledge of what police officers do, is going to try to make Kim not upset with me. Kind of like your skull buddy, I guess.
Yeah, Mort.
Mort. Any thoughts other than that? Like,
Well, reading the devlog is kind of fun because they needed to kind of develop the tools from the ground up for working with like the large scope that they had. So they were using Unity, and they generated all of their 3D stuff in Blender, it looks like, and they decided to use a program called Artisy Draft for the dialogue stuff, which is
Okay.
kind of it's a tool for like branching RPG stuff, but it kind of choked on them a bit because it couldn't handle the amount of text that's in the game.
really?
Yeah,
Huh.
so I guess it's worth learning the lesson that I think if you want to do a million-word RPG, you kind of have to roll your own scripting tool for writing dialogue.
I did love when you go into the economic district
Yeah.
that one building and you find the game devs, and Kim says, "My God, it's as if the fewer resources they had, the more ambitious they became."
So yeah, Fortress Accident. I think the group that started development on the game in Estonia or whatever is they call themselves Fortress Accident. I think they in like late 2018 changed all the branding to Zaum. It's kind of interesting because like they started their devlog in like January 2016, announced that they were going to release 2017 with Humble Publishing when the game was called No Truce with the Furies. And then they renamed it and spent like an extra 2 years in development. So it's like, I think 3 years development.
Really?
Total. Yeah.
That's it?
It feels like a lot when when you're working on a game.
I suppose so. Never having done that, I always assume games are in development. Like I remember having this idea that when I was a kid that films took like 10 years to make.
Films are like 5 or 7, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're like Pixar.
So I have no idea how long a game takes to develop.
Neverwinter Nights was 7 years, and that was hell. A lot of games are about 18 months.
And I suppose a lot of game studios actually need to get something out the door.
Yep.
Because you have your, depending on if you have like an angel investor, which I assume most people don't. I assume a lot of first games are made off people's credit cards.
Yep.
You need to start paying bills, right? That means you need to get something out the door.
Yeah, you can do like some napkin math for burn rates on studios, and it's incredible. I think the group that started on this one, they've got like, they show some images of their earlier office, and there's 11 of these guys, and they have a wood-fired stove. And the writer's just like on the couch with his laptop, and it's cold, it's very cold.
Right, it's like, okay, we need a workspace. We can buy this cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And then take turns charging our laptops off the one power outlet. So I want to talk a bit about like the narrative and some of the structures and parallelisms it sets up. One of the obvious ones is that you can compare and contrast Harry with Lely.
Yes.
Right? Because there is, right down to the numbers, there are 2 organizations that enter Martinez in order to accomplish a task.
Yeah.
The first one is the mercenaries.
Yes.
Right? Whose leader is disgraced and dies, and then the 3 others wander around. 2 are hidden, 1 is out.
Yep. Stirring shit up.
Yeah, stirring shit up. And then the police arrive. And Harry arrives and is disgraced and undergoes something very much like death.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 other members who are undercover.
They weren't
Vic
to begin with.
They weren't?
No, but Harry told them they were cramping his style.
Right, and then
they come back undercover to make fun of him. But he doesn't remember them.
Right. And then there is what's his name? Trant, who is there on a family vacation nominally, but is also keeping an eye on you. Right. But we have Kim. The big difference is that we have Kim.
Yes.
Who is there to kind of like
anchor
us.
Yeah.
Center us, I think. Right? Maybe offer us some kind of guidance rather than like an anchor. But yeah, the very same thing. We have a moral guide.
Yeah.
Right? And that kind of makes a huge amount of difference for us. Maybe it makes all the difference in the world. Right?
Like he a lot of the time he makes us double question our bad choices. Like we consider not doing speed.
I love when you actually do speed And your dialogue option is to tell Kim you have done speed.
Yep.
And you say something like, Kim, I just want you to know that I've just done some speed. It was for official police business, though. And he tries not to hear you.
Yep.
He does his level best to not have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what having Kim there prevents you from going off even further off the deep end. Kim is your Virgil, maybe. You wake up in this half life of like you're an amnesiac. Everyone despises you or is afraid of you or is trying to avoid you, and Kim tanks all of that. Right? He doesn't care. He is here to do his job, and his job is to work with you. And he lies to himself by saying that this is probably your technique.
Yeah.
Right? But the reason that we don't wind up like Lely is because of Kim. That we don't follow through on our self-destruction.
Mm-hmm. There are still opportunities in the game for just straight up killing yourself.
Dope.
Especially when you get a gun, or if you borrow his gun to, like, threaten Titus, or...
Yeah, I've heard that. Like, authority will put you into a bind with Titus.
Yep.
Where you are literally holding a gun to your head to try to prove how tough you are.
Or, like, you threaten Titus, and one of his guys pulls a gun on you, because they're armed.
Jesus.
Or, again, like, you open the ledger, and you can just kill yourself.
Oof. So, I suppose, is that the danger of just having everything looking like a nail and putting everything into one skill basket?
Yeah.
Is that you wind up on these paths that if you only have one strong voice in your head, force you, like...
Or if you just, like, impulsively follow that.
Right. But you said you had a bunch of screenshots.
Oh, sure, yeah. Let's look at some of... These are just, like, the screenshots I took while I was playing some of my run-throughs. They're, like, all spoilers.
Okay.
All spoilers. How do I make big? I think, there we go. That's a good button. I really like this one. Because there's the barrels that say ICM. And Encyclopedia will tell you that, like, ICM is the precursor to RCM.
Oh.
But if you've got Kuno with you, he's like, Idiot Cat Moon.
Inside car motors. Is Kuno magic? He is. Case solved.
Kuno's a lot of fun to have on the island with you.
I can imagine, actually. So, what are the circumstances where we wind up having Kuno follow us around? We have to get Kim shot.
Yeah, Kim gets injured during the tribunal, but I think before that you have to kind of relate to him, and then he's the one that stays with you in your room to, like, bandage you up and and save you, and then at the end you can recruit him to your detective squad.
Awesome.
Just song references.
This is extremely zoomed out.
Yeah, like those shivers bits. I think they're weather dependent.
Okay.
So if it's, like, snowing, then you can have, like, the west, north, east, south discussion with shivers throughout the game, and it'll introduce you to, like, the locations and their kind of politics and history, which is nice to have.
I love how when you're this far zoomed out, not only can you see everything, but you can hear it. Right? Like, you can hear the strike breakers.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I thought this was a cool idea, that's all.
The precarious world seems like the point of this game is victory, the absence of defeat on all fronts, victory in business ventures and creative undertakings, victory in love and over other people, political victory, ideological victory, hell, even sexual victory, Definitely a lot of object-based victories too, having things and not losing them. One problem though, not a lot of victors inside. Everyone's mostly losing. Why is that? And how do you not lose?
Right, like you learn that the pail is swallowing the world.
Interesting. And all red checks fail while you're thinking of this one.
Yeah. Definitely oopsed into a couple of those while I had this in my percolating.
Neat.
Aces low and aces high are a lot of fun because if you shoot the body down, Kim goes for like a high five.
Yeah.
But you can also do the turnaround and get the low one, and you get two different ideas depending on which one
Really?
you go for.
I would have thought Kim would have been extremely disapproving of your shooting the body down.
Now, and then finger pistols is fun. It just gives you the option to do finger pistols in dialogue.
Neat.
Gart named the Whirling and Rags.
Oh, that's Whirling in Rags is a reference to another British Sea Power song.
Yeah.
Cafeteria managers come up with great names too. It's from a song, right? Hail the Holy Queen by the Elysium. Hail, Holy Queen of the Sea, he quotes, you're whirling in rags, you're vast and you're sad.
Some esprit de corps stuff.
Huh.
Talking about heterosexual life partners. Making fun of your current partner for like not knowing where you are.
Huh.
You can get into a bit with Gart about Sylvie, the waitress that quits, where you convince him that she's not worth going after because she's riding all of the cock carousels. And then you can get into this situation where it's all you can say to Titus. While trying to convince him to tell you the truth. It's like, you're being used, man.
Cock carousel. That's amazing. Where you're just kind of like melting.
It's like, you know what? This is the hill I'm climbing on.
We planted our flag here, and this is it.
Yeah, Kim does not like that. Nothing. One interesting thing is the dialogue window on the side says Feld played back device. So it's like the micro tape, and I kind of feel like the portraits for the characters are photos that Kim takes.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Because at the end of the game, he says he has to make like a really detailed report.
Okay.
And I think that might be a little touch of the framing in the game.
I like that a lot. That you are actually just, this is Kim's report on things.
It also kind of feels like sort of a proof of concept for this type of game, because like there's the party layout thing. It's just the two portraits, but it looks like it should continue kind of over to the right. Like the whole bottom bar should join up.
Right.
But it's cut off because they were just like, no, only two characters.
Right, yeah, because you can see the line here and the line here. Right, you can quite easily imagine that curve continuing, or I should say, this gray line.
Yep. Oh, God.
This one.
That one. Yeah, that kind of arcs all the way across.
Yeah.
You can find out from Everett that he basically manufactured the whole situation with the mercenaries coming in.
Really?
Not that he caused the murder, but that he caused the traffic jam. And actually wants to start a war and revolution with the mainland.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's all set up for the drug trade, and he hates Angus.
Really? Oh, poor fat Angus.
He complains about how he smells, and
His feet smell from a city block away, and he's always having noisy stomach troubles. Horrible, revolting guy. Oh, poor fat Angus. They shot him so many times.
yeah.
Benefed is children's cold medicine, usually apricot flavored, and risperazole is used to treat severe psychosis.
Totally legitimate drug trade.
Yeah, we're gonna transport the living daylights out of those materials, Harry.
This is the pigs.
Oh! Put your hands where I can see them. The aging woman under a mountain of police paraphernalia mumbles to herself and notices you and reaches for the megaphone. See, when I heard that the pigs had our gun, I was like, damn cops.
Yeah, no, it's a lady that calls herself the pigs.
Okay. Is she a police fan person?
She is a fan of the police.
Interesting.
She thinks she's the police.
Oh.
She talks in police code. And you can spend a lot of time in that interaction before things have to go off. Which is usually she tries to shoot you and her gun's not loaded.
Oh.
Yeah. But you can get a nice lieutenant's cap from her. I think it's part of like the RCM uniform.
Ooh.
And then later you can get Titus and crew to go collect her.
Really?
And you learn some of her backstory.
Okay. Scratch. Auntie LaPlante. We always called her something LaPlante. Marianne, amigo, he says, pouring himself another drink. Marianne, amigo LaPlante. That's really delightful.
Yeah, and you can find out that Gaston used to be a phys ed teacher
Oh, really?
in human studies, so he taught Leo and everyone and Everard.
I heard on the 5th day Renee dies in his sleep.
Yeah. I thought it was because I stole drugs from his guard booth. His pain-killing meds are in there.
Oh no. Apparently it's just, his time comes.
Yeah, well, I stopped taking his meds. Is that it? Is that all I brought? Yeah.
So, one way of looking at this game is that it is, I think someone in our chat or in our Discord referred to it as, or in YouTube comments, referred to it as finding the sublime in the profane. Right? Like your encounter with the Phasmid at the end of the game can quite easily, like the photograph that Kim takes is, it's a religious image.
Which there's a lot of in the game.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of religious imagery, but the image of you reaching out to touch the Phasmid is very much framed as like a Renaissance style. You could see it on the roof of the Sistine Chapel, right? So that moment of contact with divinity, of the unknown, of the ineffable, of this thing that you commune with, this presence that sees the world very differently from you and offers you this spiritual revelation, comes as you reach the climax of your investigation, where you find out that the motivations for the murder were even more revolting than you imagined. Right? Like the deserter who murdered Lily did so out of jealousy.
Yes.
And it is a very petty, completely he had no chance, right? And it is correct that he had no chance.
Right.
Right? Like it is born out of lust and a need for control and an infantile understanding of what sex and love is. Because the murderer, the deserter, is a pathetic character.
Yeah.
Right? He was a child soldier who wasn't even trained as a soldier. He was trained as a political officer.
Yep.
Right? He's a political commissar. He's a party member, not a member of the ICM. Right? The ICM was the army, right? The Communard army.
I think they're the coalition.
The coalition? Okay. Anyway, he wasn't part of the communist army. He was a political officer who was assigned as a, and if you're, I've been reading this book called Life and Fate,
Okay.
which is about. It was written by Vasily Grossman, who was a Soviet journalist who was embedded with the Red Army during the Battle of Stalingrad.
Okay.
And he wrote this like cinder block of a book about it that was prohibited from being published in the Soviet Union until after Stalin's death. And the government at the time was like, hey, can we even call ourselves a proper Russian state if we haven't published a giant cinder block of a book about war?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, we're the inheritors of war and peace here. Right? We should probably, we've been through a fairly large war. Maybe we should have a book about it. Do we have any? It's like, well, we've got this one that we censored the shit out of it and is now like 6 pages long. Well, let's publish that. And it's furious. It is this furiously angry book about the waste of this battle. And it follows, is the tradition of Russian literature, follows a family and all of its various branches moving through this thing. And spoilers for like a 70-year-old book. But as the battle kind of reaches its conclusion, or not its conclusion, but part 2 ends with the opening of Operation Uranus, which was the Red Army encirclement of Stalingrad.
Okay.
It was the big, massive offensive that smashed the Romanian armies holding the Sixth Army's flanks as the German Sixth Army tried to fight its way through Stalingrad. It had Romanian armies holding its flanks.
Yeah.
To
So
the
just
south and
like
north of the
totally
city.
cut them off from their supply lines.
Yes.
And encircle.
So as that's happening, there are kind of like 3 branches that it follows. One is with an infantry commissar who is inside Stalingrad. One is with a cavalry officer who is part of the encirclement. And these 2 characters are related because the commissar is the ex-husband, and the cavalry officer is the current lover of not Yevgenia. What is her name? It's in my bag over there. It's got a dramatis personae that's like 30 pages long on its own. Of this woman who is no, it is Yevgenia's lover, because Yevgenia's sister to a woman who is currently married to a guy who is a physicist who is also just on a breakthrough, right? He's a scientist. He's working at this place. He's about to win a Stalin Award when his assistant is fired, and his assistant is fired because she's Jewish.
Right.
And he speaks out about it, and he is arrested. The political commissar, when the supply lines with the city are reestablished, is arrested. And the cavalry officer, because he called in an artillery bombardment that delayed the offensive by 8 minutes, is also arrested.
Wow.
So, like, on the eve of triumph, all these characters are arrested by the NKVD. And where I was going with this is that I didn't know this, but commissars were apparently abolished in the Red Army in like 1942 because it found out that they were not good. It was not a good institution. It was not an effective way of making war.
But like, yeah, with the deserter, it's like everything is tied into the politics of the area, the war that they went through, how the area is kind of recovered and built up over time, what's left over after the war.
Yeah, well, and nobody's come through to rebuild Martinez, right? It is still rubble, and occasionally, like you get the knowledge or the information that they tried to attract business, and that's what that one office tower is.
Yep.
And why it's abandoned, right? Because you can't just you can't rebuild the city like that.
No.
Right? It's an organism, which is, I think, what Shivers is all about, is you tapping into the vast organism that is Revachol.
Yep.
But Martinez is a deeply wounded part of that organism that is not being given any help or any chance to heal, or is not being made to heal.
And Everard is sitting there holding on to the resources that would work, would help, but he wants to push everyone that lives there out so that he can claim the land for himself for development.
Right, right. And I suppose that gets us into kind of also the political axes that the game wants to explore,
Yeah.
right? Where you have the communists, the fascists, the moralists,
Yeah.
and the ultra liberals, right? Or the moralists, the humanists, the centrists.
Yeah.
And the game does not really give any of these political ideologies much credit,
No.
right? It doesn't like any of them very much. And there have been criticisms of the game as taking on kind of like a South Park like approach to political ideology where everything is equally bad and therefore you shouldn't participate in it, which was South Park's thing. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can't cite where I read that because it was months ago now, because largely game criticism has moved on from Disco Elysium.
What?
But somebody made that argument and I was like, but it's not quite it, right? It says that, well, for one, Harry's understanding of all these political ideologies is very childlike and very surface level. Because he has no... We wake up as an amnesiac and we don't understand any of these things.
Yeah,
right?
he's got no context for the stuff, and like the people we encounter that represent all of these ideals are kind of out for their own gain, anyways.
Right, like when we encounter we can cosplay as them.
Yeah.
Basically, we get the catchphrases, we get the clothing that will give us some kind of insight into it. I didn't see if there was any fascist clothing. There's the brown suit for the ultra liberals. There's the white cold weather outfit.
I think the
for
Helm Dollarman
communists.
stuff is.
The Helm Dollarman? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I assume there is. I just never saw it. You can
Oh,
get a
yeah.
jacket like Renee's? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cavalry boots.
Okay.
Yeah, you can dress up like one of the cavalry people,
Oh, okay.
which is based on like the little figures you find in Roy's shop.
Right. Which is, probably not a great way of finding your political compass. Is basing it off wargaming figures.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, Renee's clothing is in his booth after he dies. So, yeah, the game also doesn't let you not take a stand, right? Because politics is this system that we all exist in, whether we acknowledge it or not, right? We're social animals, and we all have a political life, whether we like that or not. And again, this is why it's important to examine your defaults, right? Or get into the habit of examining your defaults, whether it's when you're playing a video game and you just take certain mechanics as for granted, or whether you're participating in a social life that maybe enforces certain behaviors as defaults.
And if you do the defaults in the game, then it accuses you of like dodging questions, calls you boring, and says you're a centrist.
Yeah. Whereas I assume if you go like hard communist, hard fascist, those have quite serious implications for the way that you interact with people, right? Like you mentioned last week, if you go in like hard communist to the deserter, he immediately gets that you're just a tourist.
Yep.
Right? Like you don't actually have any kind of strong identification with this, but you're wearing the uniform and you're spouting the catchphrases.
Yep. But you weren't there when the bombing was.
Yeah, you weren't there.
Yeah.
Although I do like that the extremely high net worth individual that you encounter in the shipping container does no work.
Yeah.
Right? He lives in complete isolation, as like he's completely disconnected from his labor, right? Or from any kind of labor. He operates or he lives on the periphery of it. He travels the world because of it. He is worth so much money because of it, and he is allowed to do that because of the product of other people's labor. But he does nothing, right? All he does is bend light. And Everart's, like, it's very easy to look at Everart and say, oh, well, like, the Union is bad too. But it's bad in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Everart's deeply corrupt, right? Claire and, what's the brother's name?
Everett and Edgar?
Edgar, right? Yes, yeah, the Clare brothers are deeply corrupt, but that doesn't necessarily make what they want, the ideals of a union, bad.
Yeah, it's not.
Right, like collective it, because the Clare brothers are corrupt doesn't make collective bargaining evil.
But
Right.
because they're corrupt, then the thing like the workers' strike is completely ineffectual. Like it's completely farcical. Like they want every member of the union to be on the board of directors for the company
Right.
to get a vote for every change that's made and to, have equal share in the profits.
Right, which is probably not feasible.
No.
And in fact, the company hires mercenaries in order to not have to deal with anymore. Right? They don't like that so much that they hire hired killers to deal with it.
And you can also find out that Joyce has a really romantic memory of Martinez and that she actually wants the area to be revitalized.
Right. Right. And what we want and what we do can sometimes be quite different things and lead to quite different outcomes. Right? Like, it's nice that Joyce wants that.
She
Right.
doesn't actually do anything, though. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't stop the tribunal. She doesn't stop the mercenaries from, mob mongering.
Yeah. And, like, the Clare brothers don't actually do a whole lot in order to make the lives of their workers better. Right?
No.
They take these positions of, like, these very, like, hardline negotiating positions where you start off and then build policy around those, which doesn't seem terribly helpful. But, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just naturally sympathetic towards the union. Right? I think it's quite easy to be sympathetic towards the union because you spend a lot of time with them, right? Like, the Hardys develop into quite, like, you spend so much time with the Hardys that you kind of like them, right?
And if you have, a lot of, the police stats, like authority and esprit de corps, you relate to them more strongly.
Right,
You're
yeah,
like,
well, you
Titus is a sergeant.
yeah, you see the authority structure within them, right? Harry has a lot of sympathy for them because you recognize game, I guess. They sit around, they get drunk.
Yeah,
you
but
sit around,
but
you get
as you
drunk.
treat them the way they want to be treated, they respond well to you, and you're gain connections with them.
And you don't spend much time with the fascists at all.
No.
That they are very much an outside force, and that is probably just an artifact of how I played through the game. Right? I don't know if you can opt to spend more time with the fascist characters. I don't know if you have any on-ramp for that.
Yeah, there's not really. There's the mug stuff
Right.
with
Gary.
Gary. And you can become racist.
Right. I assume that's the Measurehead thought cabinet
Yeah.
thought. So but they remain mysterious to you then, no matter your path through the game.
Yep.
And then the moralists, you do spend quite a lot of time with Joyce. And Joyce is a nice woman. Right? Like Joyce has a job that she needs to get done, and you can help her with that or you can stop wasting her time. But she does give you quite a lot of information. She spends time with you. She's broadly sympathetic towards you. And that puts her high in the rank of more sympathetic characters.
She's not the moralist. Kim's the moralist.
Kim's the moralist?
Kim's a moralist. She's an ultra-liberal.
Right. Sorry, yes. It shows you how much attention I pay. Kim
And then
is a moralist.
the boring Sunday friend is also a moralist.
Yes, yeah.
The guy from Circle Clef.
Yeah, the guy.
bureaucrat.
Yeah, he kind of reads as like an IMF operator of some kind, International Monetary Fund, or maybe the World Bank. Years ago I read was it Globalism and Its Discontents? Written by a Nobel Prize winning economist. And it was largely about how the IMF was bad, but the World Bank was good. World Bank solved river blindness. IMF demanded money in exchange for it, I think. Globalization and Its Discontents, yeah. Yeah, and this... The point being, there's a lot going on in this game that's quite interesting. And I really don't like the thing where it's like, but all political ideologies are the same and therefore don't bother with any of them, because not bothering with any of them is also a political ideology that the game reminds you of, right? It's like, by dodging all of this, you're not actually avoiding anything. You think you're avoiding it, but you're actually committing to a different political ideology, right? This vanilla's a flavor here, right? The game keeps telling you over and over again.
And it dresses in brown, and it's not going to do anything because it takes forever to do anything.
And it kind of likes the way these things are.
Yep.
Right? It finds... everything is okay enough right now that it works, right? Is what the moralist center is.
Right, it's like making change would increase suffering.
Right. So better not do that.
Yeah.
Right? It has a very hard time seeing on any kind of long planning horizon. And I prefer that read on things quite a lot, and I think that's a very easy argument to make, that the game does not, in fact, make moral equivalencies between all of these ideologies. It says that they all have deep problems and deep flaws. Some of those flaws are significantly more... some of those flaws are worse than others.
But also you can't always attribute people's flaws to that ideology that they have.
Like they came to them honestly.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a quick break?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. We will be back shortly. Everyone stand up. Get some water. Bye.
Hey, we're back.
We don't need to be down there. Reflex.
What else can we talk about? I mean, what does it take to make a game about being a cop in 2019? It's kind of a challenge.
A little bit of a challenge, yeah.
It's speaking of politics, it is itself like a heavily laden political message to go into 2019 and release a game about being a cop, and particularly about being a bad cop.
Like early on in the concept art, he's referred to as the disgrace to the uniform.
Right. Like, going back to Twin Peaks, in third season of Twin Peaks, there's a scene in one of the earlier episodes where the main character, Dale Cooper, he has spent the last couple of decades living as a man named Dougie.
Okay.
He deals in real estate. He's married to Naomi Watts. He has a child. And Dougie deals in real estate in Las Vegas. And Dale Cooper slowly comes back to his senses, or at least recognizes that he's living inside this hollowed out husk of a man named Dougie.
Right.
And stepping out of his office one day, he stands in this public square, this office square outside of his office, where there is a statue of the lawman. And in his previous life as Dale Cooper was an FBI agent, a special agent, and possibly like the exemplar.
Yes, he was.
Of what a lawman could be. And he stands there utterly transfixed by this statue of a man in a police uniform holding out a gun. Which is not what Harry is, right? And being a cop, especially one in Martinez, is a hard row to hoe, right? There is no police presence in Martinez.
No.
It's kind of on the border region between precincts 57 and 41, right, where both of them have agreed not to pay too much attention to it, which is why the Hardy Boys exist. And the game confronts with you with this over and over again. The police don't have a presence here. They don't care about this place. So why are you here now to investigate the murder of somebody who is here to uh, 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 an authoritarian, a violent authoritarian?
He was there to like threaten and kill people.
Yeah. Why are you here to investigate and dish out justice for his murder and not for any of the other wrongs that have been done? And your reply is, because this is the only reply you can offer, is that you don't know. You don't have a good answer for it, right? It's like, well, I mean, there was a murder, it was highly visible, and we had to,
Yeah.
right? Which is not a good answer, right? And in our defense, we did get up to some other police business while we were in Martinez, specifically investigating and eventually delivering news of one person's death to his widow.
Yep.
Right? We find this body on the pier of a man who, while drunk, broke through the stepped through a rotten plank on the pier and hit his head and died.
We also we can harass her for cases. We'd be like, are your children missing? Is your cockatoo missing?
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we literally put on our empathy hat to deal with that. But if you don't, I imagine you can make her life a living hell.
It can go poorly.
One of the dialogue options I remember quite vividly says, when she asks you how long he was dead for when you found him, and I think it's the empathy check that says, if you say 2 days, that she will never stop thinking about that.
Yeah. That scene is one of the best in the game, I feel.
Yeah, that it's a difficult conversation. Again, if you want to talk about like where the boss fights are in this game, I feel that one qualifies certainly as like an optional boss that you can do.
And if you screw it up afterwards, Kim's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, like I imagine it can go varying degrees of bad, where maybe Kim is like, well, that could have gone better, and on the other end, like, Kim can be quite angry with you.
Yep.
So back to an earlier thread of the conversation, being a cop is hard in Martinez because the Hardys are de facto law enforcement.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're tied to the case.
Yes. Right. So you're here to kind of watch the Watchmen. Right. Because, like, I imagine the police in Revachol would not tolerate a completely lawless district.
No.
Right. But then again, Martinez is one that's been completely abandoned by the city at large, right, and is now run by the Union, even though it fulfills apparently quite an important economic role in the city as having like this enormous shipping center.
Yeah.
Right. And for a maritime city, or one that's based on commerce like Revachol, Martinez you'd think would be quite important, but I suppose the Union now has enough authority to just run its own show. But like the police are not a formidable presence, it seems, in the rest of Revachol either. Right? Like, you're overworked, you're under-resourced. The first thing you see when you look at the mercenary's body is that like this armor is so much more effective than anything the police can afford, that the RCM can afford or deal with. And when you actually encounter the mercenary tribunal, they carry automatic weapons. They have like automatic rifles, and one of them uses an anti-tank rifle.
Yep.
And the RCM issues its officers with muzzle-loading, like flintlock pistols.
Yep.
Basically, and the rifles that you find in the communist stockpiles are all old. Some
breech
of them,
loaders.
breech loaders, right? Like these are very kind of like early 19th century weapons. Like a revolver would be a technological step up for you.
Yeah, there's like 5-6 decades worth of difference between you and Krenel.
Um, and that shows, right? Like that utterly comes through when they murder like 10 people in a matter of seconds. Um, actually, Simriel, the gun that our gun is another pepper pot style gun. It has 3 barrels,
Yeah.
so it has 3 rounds. I think that's the big difference between the one that we get from Ruby and the one that we recovering our gun, is that our gun has 3 shots in it and Ruby's only has 2.
Yeah. I've only found 2 bullets though. I don't know where
Okay.
the third comes from.
So yeah, like the police are drastically under-resourced and are not capable of doing their jobs, which shows through because people don't respect you. People don't care for you. People don't go out of their way to help you because they don't trust you.
You're a foreign authority.
Yeah, well, yeah, you are absolutely a foreign authority, and I don't think it's helped at all by the fact that like the police are not an effective presence even where they are around, right? Like Harry's a superstar cop who has solved hundreds of cases, has killed 3 people
Yep.
over a couple of decades of career, which, you know, when we ask him to comment on our record, right, he's like, you know, it's not good, but there are a lot of officers who have significantly higher body counts and don't care about it. And you've killed 3 people, and don't be proud of that, but like that's also not, that's remarkable, right?
Because
considering
of,
the length
like,
of your career.
Where you're situated.
Yes.
In Jamrock.
Yeah, and like the potential for violence is much higher than that body count. And I think Kim says that he's killed 6 or 7 people.
Yep.
So, like Harry is an exceptional cop, but he has not. It's not like he's made an impact, right? In fact, quite the opposite. It's destroyed him in several ways, right? If he wasn't already a self-destructive person, the caseload that he takes on and the caseload that, you know, the chaining one case into another. At one point, you know, you do the math, and Kim tells you that you've done like 2 cases a week.
Yeah.
For 20 years. That's burnout, right? That is an almost self-destructive level of work.
And it's tied to your lost love 6 years ago.
Right. One thing I love about that is that your partner, who you imagine that you're quite close to, right? Like all the other cops in your department call you heterosexual life partners.
Yeah.
Says that you mentioned her like once a couple of years ago.
Because she was hot.
Yeah. And you don't actually talk about her. He seems quite surprised when you mention this as being this thing that has consumed your life over the last couple of days. So either Harry doesn't talk about it, which makes sense, right? Like the reason that you dive face first into work and never come up for air is that you're avoiding something.
Yeah.
Or that maybe she isn't a huge presence in your life. And now when everything has been stripped away from you, it all comes back. Like you can no longer hide from it. Although I think during the dream, Harry ends the conversation by saying see you tomorrow night.
Yes.
So I guess that is the implication, that this is something that does consume your life and the only respite you get from it is work.
Or being blackout drunk so you don't have a dream.
Good point.
Yeah, but you still keep the letter that she gave you in the ledger.
Yeah, and a
ticket
gum
stubs.
wrapper.
Yeah, gum wrapper. So
That's-
that you can smell her.
Oof. And I like that she's like, yeah, it's tutti frutti gum, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not. This isn't a rose. This isn't a handkerchief with a unique perfume.
Yeah.
This is like grocery store gum.
And there's apricot stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So some of the threads that I never got to follow were who called in the murder, and I'm assuming it was like there's a couple of people that I guessed it might have been. One was Klasia. One is the waitress who leaves.
Okay.
Gart.
It
is
was
like-
Klasia, and she nicked the telephone lines to disguise her voice.
Oh, really?
So she's why the phone in the whirling doesn't work.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right. That was just a question I had.
Yeah.
Because I never got to follow up on it. I assume if you follow other conversational paths with Glacia, she just tells you. And that was another thing that was brought up as a failure in our own meeting with our fellow officers, was that we didn't bring her in.
Yeah.
And what I got from the Sunday friend was that bringing her in and arresting Glacia would be extremely bad for her health.
Yes.
Like, I don't think anyone would necessarily... I don't trust our police department to keep her safe, considering the nature of her work and the kind of people who are looking for her.
Yeah. If you talk to her before the Sunday friend, he'll tell him that you know that there's a corporate espionage person locally, he'll be like, please arrest her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very scary. And also, I assume if you get the signatures for the letter for Everard and mail it in, and then you get the information about your gun.
Yep.
I assume that fishing village just gets, like... I think you told me that the what Everard's actually trying to do is just drive everyone out with the construction noise, make life completely unbearable for them.
The construction blocks road access to all their homes. And, yeah, will be loud and delayed.
Yeah.
Until they leave.
So, you know, it's an effort to inflict misery.
Yep.
Right? It is a poisoned, not a poisoned pill, but a something that looks sympathetic but is actually just designed to evoke misery or impose misery on people so that you can have their thing.
Yeah.
Right? They have nothing, but Everard wants it. Yeah, well, what else can we say right now? Like,
I have criticisms.
Okay. Okay.
Typos.
Yes. The game is full of typos.
Game is full of typos, which makes it feel like content was rushed. Like it was a last minute thing, it didn't get much testing. Hopefully that's why.
Right.
Right? Like it makes it feel sloppy. It takes you out of the narrative because the game relies on text.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may have been edited, but it was edited by somebody who was very close to it.
Yeah, he just didn't have the eyes to see the typos. I feel like there's a lack of animations in the game. Like, I feel like, at least for the red checks, because those are the most interesting situations, that they should have animations for you, like fumbling catching some keys and stuff like that, or trying to get through another door that you can't get through. Like, there's so many door animations. Why not all of the doors?
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Because the animation are quite delightful when they happen.
Exactly.
Right. Like when you fail to bust down the door behind the bookstore,
and you're just like holding your shoulder.
Yeah, dancing around on one foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what got animations and what didn't is definitely like why they're not there. Right.
Yeah.
And it's a resourcing problem, I guess. I
guess. But I don't know. The tutorial is all over the place. Like, you can hit tutorial text way late in the game after, like, if you finally buy some alcohol, it's like, please equip the thing to use the thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty irritating. Just because it's like, I'm on day 5, why am I getting the beginner of the game text?
Yeah, I forgot which one we got, like, very near the end of the game.
Maybe it was, like, cigarettes or pure Holodon or something.
Yeah.
Or, like, white checks will be unlocked later.
Yeah. It was something very elementary that we got tutorial text on.
How to open doors.
Right.
Something. I also... White checks. I don't like that the ones that you can't do again are not cleared from your journal.
Yes.
It's really irritating. It's like, oh, I got a white check for that dead body that was cleared from the pier 2 days ago. It's nice to see that every time I open this page.
Yeah, something that I just can't do anymore.
Mm-hmm. That was a pain. And then the racism is still too close to home. But just I brought that up at the beginning.
Yeah.
And there was like, it was mostly okay because of the arc we were trying, but like only one thing made us nope out of the game.
Yeah, which was, to lay it out, was when we call Kim a racist slur because he doesn't want to dance.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks a lot about like the kind of person that Harry was, is that he has quite a violent temper.
Yeah.
When he doesn't get what he wants. Right? Like, the fact that Kim said no to us and we immediately, like, call him a slur.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look, Harry. Right? Like,
and it's not a good feeling for role playing.
No. And yeah, the fantastic racism is still based on real world ethnicities and races and cultural groups, right? Like, just because you're calling the Asian stand-in group a different racist name,
yeah,
is still like, I don't know about this one, right? And the homophobia is also not even, right? It's not even inveigled at all in any way.
No,
right?
It's just right out there.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of it. It's kind of like that tongue-in-cheek South Park thing where it's like, haha, we're doing the bad thing, but they are actually just doing the bad thing.
Yeah, like, we're commenting on the bad thing by doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, but how? Like, criticism takes more than just, like, saying the bad thing and then expecting people to understand it.
Yeah, and there's, like, one word that's censored in the game for being a real word that has to do with homophobia, and it's mild compared to the words they don't bleep out or fuzz out.
Yeah.
It feels like the priorities are just not the same.
Right. Like, there's this, like, argument about, like, well, how do you present horror?
Yeah.
Right? And to a large extent, you can't, like, comment on literally everything as saying, like, also this is bad. Right? That you need to, at some point, you're going to have to trust your audience. Right? But you also kind of need to, like, cultivate your audience and develop them on a path where they're like, ah, yes, this too is bad.
Yeah.
And hop on, hop off stuff like episodic TV, that's very difficult to do. Right? Like, maybe you could establish some kind of arc if you knew that all of your audience was, like, deeply invested in paying in or watching all the time. Right? But, like
they tried that in Voyager.
And where you're just using real world violence and real world racism and real world homophobia, slightly, like, with a substitution cipher over top of it. Right? That because that the game has to present this as, like, a defensible choice, or at least a sensible choice for you to play along with, right? That implicitly involves justifying it, right? Or making it make sense, right? Like, if you've played Dragon Age,
Yeah.
right, you have the option of going full on board with, like, the fantastic racism in that game and the oppression of magic users.
Yeah.
Right? And because the game wants to make everything make sense to you, right, or have a justification or have, like, some kind of payoff, then those things have to be based in some kind of reality, or at least have some kind of payoff for the player to take them. Right? Which leads to people being like, yeah, but, you know, it makes sense for me to do this.
But it's Harry doesn't really comment on it, and doesn't really have an opinion, and it's usually just kind of like brushed off if you're like say the casual things, but because we weren't playing that way, being forced in the situation was difficult. It's like the Mass Effect being forced to have sex with someone problem. It's like I was just forced to be massively racist, even though I haven't said a racist thing. Like, you can go through the whole game without drinking alcohol. Because it's still a choice, but like at a certain point we didn't have a choice to not say the thing.
Yeah, like, and it really feels like, wow, Harry has actually been this all along.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is something Harry would just toss out and not really think about. Right? Like, the person before Harry's personal apocalypse, the Harry that existed before that, was this person. Because it comes out so naturally and so effortlessly when he encounters anything that challenges him. Right? Or this one thing where he is challenged. And it's in this moment of like, it. Have you seen The Lighthouse?
No, not yet.
Okay. Do you mind if I talk about one scene in it? There's one scene where one of the characters makes lobster. And the character who cooks this meal, he makes a fancy meal, right? And he is like the violent authoritarian. He's quite abusive of the other character. He orders him around in various humiliating roles, puts his life in danger repeatedly, but he has made a nice meal. And when the other character doesn't like it, that's when he like rages. Right? Like, in his role as an abuser, he is, he's kind of affable. There's a pretense to it, right? He's like, I'm in charge, so I don't have to do this job anymore. Right? So you get to do all of the terrible jobs. But when his kindness is not accepted, or what he performs as kindness is not accepted, that's when he loses control and rages out. And that really feels very similar to what happens with Harry, where Harry has just like, he's had this big personal triumph where he's like gotten these kids to like, their music is better, they're going to open a club, everything is awesome, he's dancing, he has triumphed, he has uncovered a new self, he has uncovered the spinal column. Right? It's not just limbic system and
reptilian brain
duking it out anymore. Now there is the spinal column too, and he is what is he? He is described as a pure execution as he dances, and it's joyous. And Kim says he's not going to dance with you, and instantly this comes out. Right? And it really felt very much like that Lighthouse kind of like thing where you have had a little bit of happiness eroded from you, and your response is like just this fist. And it felt like it was always there. Right? It felt like it was always there, just waiting for the moment where it could like come out, because it's not tied to any skill.
No.
Right? It's not because you made
you made an authority failure and that's why Kim didn't dance, but it's
that it does color the entire game, right? That like maybe our successes are only contingent on us being successful previously, right? And that the instant we encounter any kind of failure or roadblock, that it's all going to come apart, and we will turn into this creature just like one of the evil apes duking it out.
Whereas usually like we break down sobbing and crying, like you lose composure in the chair and you like slide down to the floor whenever it brings up your gun. Or people don't listen to your authority, so you stomp your feet and cry and yell at them. You're just like, man, I wanted you to do the thing.
Like when you lose your cool with Titus. Right? No, good solid point. Did you have any other criticisms?
Not that I wrote down.
Okay.
But they do exist.
Like, one of the checks I really wish we had passed was the one to save Ruby.
Yes.
Because you let her go, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how it plays out, but you let her go, you don't get her gun, but she lives because she didn't really do anything wrong, right? Well, I mean, like, she tortured us.
Yeah, and she is a
participated in the
major
lynching.
player in the drug trade.
Right.
She does sell drugs to babies.
But she didn't deserve to die there.
No.
She didn't deserve to die like that. So that's something that I wish we had been able to do. A lot of people in chat are asking if we found out that Kim was gay, and I believe that we did.
I don't think we ever
Did we ask
internalized
him?
the
Oh,
homosexual underground thought.
Right. But yes, that I think at one point you asked, Kim, are you part of the homosexual underground? And he's like, yes. Like, he doesn't conceal it, but he, like, pauses for a moment before he decides if he's going to answer or not. So yeah, referring to Kim as our husband was probably maybe a bit on the nose, maybe a bit inappropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of inappropriate exertion of our position of authority. Which is why Mass Effect romances are bad.
God, Mass Effect romances.
Don't worry, they're your underlings. You can order them to their death. Or participate in what is certainly an entirely consensual relationship with them.
Yeah. They're
With
all
their boss.
adults.
With their boss. You're their boss.
Yeah, now my brain's on that track and instead of trying to think of issues I had with Disco Elysium. The reason I like Pathologic 2 more is not like a quality of the writing thing, which is like primary for both games. It's that Pathologic 2 makes you feel desperate, whereas Disco, you might get a little frustrated that you're slightly blocked, but you don't ever feel like you don't have a choice other than that one racism time.
Yeah. And, like, I keep coming back to that, right? As just the way it blurts out.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's... If it was anything but racism against Kim. Right?
Yeah. One of the other issues I did have was the pants dance, like swapping your clothing to pass checks. That feels weird.
It does.
It
I
feels
enjoy
really
it.
weird.
It's very strange, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, like
It's very absurdist.
in like the Infinity Engine games, you run into a conflict and you get your ass kicked and you reload your save, and now you have information about how to
how to proceed.
how to dress yourself and what potions to take off. But then this one, you're just like, well, I'm just gonna leave dialogue and put this hat on.
Yeah, because you're almost literally like, pardon,
like,
one moment.
Yes, I'm going to leave now.
Yeah,
Doop-a-doop-a-doop.
that was everything for now. Is usually like the dialogue ending option.
Yep. Leave.
I find it wildly entertaining, but it is weird. It's a very weird way to handle that.
I just wish like maybe the stat sorting in the inventory would be better if that was the intent all along.
That yeah, you were expected to min max every check.
Yeah.
Um,
And they like in the kind of like press statements for the hardcore mode, they're like, yeah, your pants matter. Kind of like they're kind of doubling down on that being the way things are handled.
right. Whereas
So-
like if you had to just like get dressed in the morning
Yeah.
and then deal with the consequences of that.
Or if it was like The Sims and you had like different outfits.
That would have been really good. Right, if you had like a purple or if you had a blue, purple, yellow, and red outfit,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, because I don't know how much time I spent mousing over every single garment looking for them. But never really developed. I suppose it was because I played the game a week apart, but I never developed a sense for which articles of clothing were good for which purpose. Although the cop stuff was usually good for like authority.
Yeah. I found myself using books to pass time because you're not allowed to sit on the bench while Kim's there, which is like for 12 hours in the game you have to have Kim around and he'll nag at you to get on about the case, but it's like, yeah, but I can't go talk to the Sunday friend until 10 and I can't go talk to the pigs until 10, so what am I doing today? I'm totally blocked right now.
Right, yeah. That sucks.
It does suck.
Right. Like, I imagine Kim, I've heard a lot of police work is hurry up and wait. Like with most things, right? There are some things that you just can't get done right away. Like when I worked for highways, the thing about construction workers leaning on shovels, like 6 people leaning on shovels while 2 people do work,
Yep.
is because there's a job that only those 2 people can do and needs to get done before the 8 of them can do something else.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes you just have to let time pass. Sometimes you have to wait for something else to happen before you can get on with things.
And there are mechanics in the game for passing time, but you can't do them with Kim. And you just end up cycling through books,
Right.
just hitting the same dialogue loop.
That sucks. What else? Like, we ran into a lot, like, our day 1 took a long time to get through. Like, I think we spent the first 4 or 5 sessions
4 or so, yeah.
on day 1. And I felt really good when that was done because we were able to get the body down on day 1. And it turns out getting the body down on day 1 is, you know, a kind of a lateral move. Because you locks you out of getting certain other things. But it felt impressive at the time. And I remember feeling like frustrated that we couldn't get things done in those first few playthroughs because it felt like we were blocked everywhere. I didn't want to internalize the racism thought
Yeah.
in order to get past Measurehead.
We failed on jumping the roof.
Yeah, and it felt like, well, what now?
Yeah.
Right? And then I think we were able to go back and then get to the roof jumping,
Yep.
like through Kuno's hideout.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to our Pathologic 2, your comment on Pathologic 2. One thing I've heard about that game quite a lot is that you don't get everything.
No.
You don't save everyone. You
You
there is
cannot.
no perfect playthrough of Pathologic 2. That one of the strong elements of the game is that you have to deal with loss.
Yep.
Like you have to deal with the fact that not everything is going to work out here. Whereas Disco Elysium does feel like one of the ones where you can just like 100% it, right? Or get everything that you kind of want out of a playthrough.
Like you can't collect every type of dice, but yeah. The dice market will only make you one thing.
Huh. I never encountered that. I wonder if you can make ice cream.
I don't believe so,
Oh.
but you can put the body in the polar bear fridge. And I think you can steal his boots while he's frozen, and that might help with the soupiness.
Oh. Oh. I don't like it.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to like 3 years from now when not just another Disco Elysium comes out, but when people are
Like when they've internalized kind of the lessons of this game.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely got enough awards that enough people will be playing it.
Yeah.
That if uh, people don't make like Disco Elysium likes, at least the experience of playing the game will have changed the way people like to make games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I kind of am interested to see how this game's genetic material propagates the through the gameverse.
Yeah. Like for Infinity Engine stuff, usually people go the Divinity Original Sin route, like Larian, where it's just like kind of a one-to-one transfer of stuff. Although
Right.
their Baldur's Gate 3 looks like they're trying some new stuff, trying more pen and paper.
Right.
And the problem with a lot of RPGs is like dealing with how many exceptions there are.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like the rule set says this should happen now,
Yeah.
but that's really inconvenient and not very interesting.
Which is not a problem that Disco has.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like the DM is telling you to throw dice at a specific thing because you're like, I want to steal this man's sandwich. And you're like, how are you going to convince him to steal the sandwich? Like, well, I'm going to form an anti-crime posse. And these are my two bros. Dude, give me your sandwich.
Oh, now I'm thinking about all the bad lessons people could learn from Disco Elysium.
Ugh.
The edginess,
Yeah.
or looking at it and seeing edginess, I guess. The game does have some edginess to it.
Yep.
Like the racism, the homophobia.
But specifically stuff like the mercenaries, how they behave.
Right. Like they call you a loincloth.
Yeah.
Right. Which characterizes them as, violent racists, possibly genocidal. Like Lely's tape, the recording of Lely is called the Door Gunner Mega Mix.
Yeah.
Which, if not an explicit reference to Full Metal Jacket's Door Gunner, at least evokes it, right? The guy who's just on the helicopter with a machine gun, gunning down civilians.
I think it's a specific thing because it talks about like murdering women and children.
Oh, does it? Okay, yeah.
Doing it up Leishman style.
All right.
You can get information about the conflicts from Cordy.
Oh, okay. Okay. I also love how the mercenaries are like very much not a presence until they very much are. Until you realize, wait, the Hardys have just spent like a solid week getting drunk, bragging about how they killed this guy.
Yep.
And there's several more who are unaccounted for, walking around,
Yeah.
listening
Also
to
getting
this.
drunk.
Yeah, also getting drunk, as it turns out. And which I guess is the only reason that you stand any chance against them, is that they're all, like, the mercenaries at the tribunal are, like, falling down drunk.
If you turn down the whirling borscht, you can get them sober.
Really?
Yeah. We made them drunk.
Oh, well, that's good. Because I assume the guy with the anti-tank rifle, if he wasn't so drunk he's crying,
Yeah.
is much more dangerous. Kortenauer? Is that his name?
Cordy's the leader.
Right. I assume he's the guy that you have to talk to progress the what do these tattoos mean.
Or
quest.
Joyce. Joyce can tell you.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, is that it?
Yeah. I definitely encourage everyone to go read the devlogs for information about like how the game was built and why they made some decisions.
Yeah.
Kind of what they were going for.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. Check it out. I should do that as well. I should do some basic research other than just the primary text. I would get a very bad grade for this essay. uh, but yeah, I don't know. It still stands as my GOTY 2019. Um, though I need to play Pandemic 2.
It's a difficult game. It's hard.
I've heard that.
It's so hard. I restarted a playthrough just because I was like, I don't remember what I was doing or why. Also, I'm infected up the wazoo, and I can't. There's no cure for being infected.
Oh no.
Like, I can't harvest enough kidneys to fix myself.
Question in chat about the supernatural elements of the game. One of the adages in mysteries is that any element of the supernatural has to be discounted or explained away, right? And instead, this game leans hard into it.
Mm-hmm.
With the, well, I mean, like the phasmid is the most immediate and obvious example. But there are skills that are semi-mystical.
Yep.
Right? Like Shivers, I feel, is high on the list of like skills with mystical implications,
And
as
Inland Empire.
Inland Empire as well. Things that allow that also esprit de corps gives you a lot of information that you are not privy to, but that nominally you're extrapolating just from your knowledge of how organizations work. That you can say, like, this is probably happening right now. But I feel esprit de corps also has kind of like a semi-mystical connotation to it.
Yeah, with the city actually talking to you.
Mm-hmm. There's also the hole in the world and the Pale.
Yes.
Right, which has, you know, deep implications for the nature of the world, right? The idea that the phasmid tells you that the Pale is generated by people.
Yeah.
And will eventually consume the world because people have ideas about things and are now integrated so deeply into the fabric of the universe that if they stop thinking about the universe, it will cease to exist.
Mm-hmm. And the different technologies with the radio stuff that they develop to communicate over the Pale, and how travel through the Pale is limited because it does things to your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Where you remember things and forget a lot.
I really want to find out what the Pale Rider skill is, because there is the Pale
Driver.
Yeah, the Pale Driver, who is very much not home anymore, or at least seems like it, at least the amount I was able to talk to her. Because, like, you need to travel through the Pale.
Yeah.
In order for this world to work, right? Like, if you stopped traveling through the Pale, then you wouldn't have commerce. And what would happen then? Right? Of course we need to travel through the Pale. Yeah. Even though it has these enormously deleterious effects on the people who do it. Where am I going with this? I don't know, actually.
The supernatural in media.
Right. So, like, to a certain extent, the fantastic is treated as, like, it winds up being integrated as part of the mundane, right? Inland Empire, Esprit de Corps, Shivers, these are all just normal skills that you can take normally and don't have to think too much about. But they have kind of, like, vast implications about what the world actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pale is treated as a mystical thing, talked about as a mystical thing, but mechanically the game, or not the game, but the world treats it as an obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? Something to be endured, not quite, because you can't circumnavigate it. You can't ignore it completely, but, you know, there's just, like, a level of casualties that this world will tolerate in order to have this apparently deeply epistemological or ontological force tearing at its seams.
Yeah. But it's also like how deeply ingrained the stuff about the innocence is in the culture. How it's just like they're the figurehead because they had magic powers.
Yes, right. Like, yeah, they perform miracles.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's a thing that we're talking that that forms the basis of moralist uh, uh, uh,
Society, I guess. Like, it's
yeah.
they write the laws.
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly they're better than us.
And they also have the military force to enforce them.
Yeah.
Right? Like Dolores Day basically led a crusade.
Yeah.
A moralist crusade, a centrist crusade.
Mm-hmm.
And her association with Dora,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is probably explicative of the character, right? And how we imagine her as this otherworldly, absolute presence,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is kind of unchallengeable, occupying this political role. Probably, says quite a lot about who the character was, because when we meet her, we don't see her as like, she's not the manic pixie dream girl,
No.
right? She is somebody who went to art school and then left you to go to to teach at an art school.
Yep.
Basically, right? And it's pretty cut and dry, right? Like her motivations are pretty clear, right? Then they aren't bad or cruel, but we also don't get the impression that she wound up not being particularly invested in us.
Yeah.
After the initial infatuation, we were very cool, and then we were less cool,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were sad.
And now we're sad.
Yes. So yeah, the game definitely like makes an association there between our the personal and the political.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where okay, that's interesting. Right, if you are cleaving to the moralist ideology, right, and avoiding committing anything, and the game is telling you, look, like, you're not doing what you think you're doing here, right? By not taking sides, you are still taking a side. I wonder if that is a comment on what Harry's coping strategies were within this relationship. If that is the association our psyche draws, right? Where we look at the mural of Dolores Day and smell apricots because of Dora's gum, and we associate those two people so closely together. Did Harry try center pathing his way through that relationship?
Right.
Don't know. Don't know.
We don't even know if they partied and did karaoke. Like.
Yeah. Also, the karaoke check. Yes.
Boss fight.
Although the failure on that state is also like exquisite. I love that. Yeah, like if you fail it, if you pass, Ancient Reptile Brain tackles it and just like Tom Waits the song.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fail it, it's the limbic system that's like, don't worry, I'll protect us.
Yeah.
And like reaches for the microphone and just like sobbing and snot and like, it's so bad and amazing. I would like to have seen what Spinal Column could have done there.
Right. I like yeeting the petanque ball into the sea.
Right. Yes.
Like that's a success.
Yeah, the man ball.
Yeah.
Hybrid organism.
Yeah, and I like the failure if you try to remember your own name, where you are Ambrosius Cousteau, and you can completely reject being Harry Dubois and just become Cousteau.
I'm gonna have to try that. I also noticed in your screenshots you had no portrait. You had not looked in the mirror.
Yeah, I haven't done that in my hardcore playthrough.
That's fascinating. Does that have any other implications through the game?
I don't know.
Ooh.
I've definitely I've fixed the expression. I've done shaving.
First off, what is Kim's reaction to use shaving.
It's a bad idea. He does not like. It's just like, ooh, it was covering up some things.
Yeah, I imagine like Harry's skin has to be like all burst blood vessels and like severe damage going on there. And I'd love to know what your partner or what the other people in your police department think when they see you without the expression and facial hair. If they're like, wait, shit, that's him. Right? Like they even recognize you. Like I imagine that I think I commented that like shaving would be a very bad idea and that losing the expression would probably also be a bad idea because I feel like these are armatures that are giving Harry just something to hang on to. You know, and if you let them go, then the relaxation that they permit you just nothing good is going to come out of there.
There we go. Games on Ink has given us a shot of the expression without the expression and traps. Yeah. Sad. He's a sad man.
Oh, it's not even a good shave.
It's not a good shave.
It's not a good shave. Oof.
What's this related meme? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the expression is disguising our sadness a lot.
Yeah, when like Harry describes the expression, or when electrochemistry describes the expression, or maybe it's the thought cabinet.
Encyclopedia describes the expression.
Okay.
Or at least it'll tell you the origin of the expression.
Right, as being based on kind of like a David Bowie kind of character in the game's history. That maybe you are in fact this person. No, you are not in fact this person. But like, you know, this singular rock star or disco star.
Yeah.
That you were quite a bit like earlier in your life, and now that it's no longer cool, are still quite a bit alike.
Did you get the check where one of your skills realizes the others can't be trusted?
Out of curiosity, I don't think I did. I want to say that that's volition.
It might actually be volition that discovers that. When you're talking to Classia, you can realize that Drama has been duped.
Really?
By her attractiveness, and that Drama's leading you kind of astray in your interaction with her. Because Drama's the one that's supposed to be core to figuring out if people are lying or making lies for you, but
right.
It's just like, no, she's sexy. Listen to what she says.
Oh no. Right, yeah, because okay, that's really interesting. I like that a lot. It's like when you try to get Kim to tell you a secret.
Yeah.
And Kim is like, no. And you push him, and he deploys the eyebrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's when you realize that Kim's authority is like maybe you have quite good authority, but Kim's is like this unattainable that you can maybe approach it on an asymptote, but you're never going to get there.
Also, his composure must be like.
Well, Kim has this weird interest in looking cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like Kim is the fact that you see Kim as a very cool character, as he's very composed, right? He never lets anything break through. That's a deliberate thing that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is. And he's designed his outfit to be like reminiscent of like air troopers or whatever. And
really?
He likes his car and he likes to go fast. He's got some mods to equip with it later on. He's gonna replace the headlights.
Yeah, he's got the helium lights that he's very excited about, but he isn't excited about it, but he speaks about it with pride, I guess. Yeah, deep down, Kim is a nerd. I want to know if we could play like D&D with him.
I don't think you can play D&D with him.
Oh, okay.
I want to though.
A binoclard. Is that an actual French term, or is that something that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because you see the word binoclard in the game, and you absolutely know what it means, right? Because it evokes the thick glasses, right? And you can instantly hear the Simpsons Poindexter voice. You can play the board game with him?
The Whirl board game?
Okay.
I haven't successfully done that. Do you need the Whirl dice to do it? Because you can get a die made for Fortress X, and you can get like a regular D20 made, or a Chaos die.
Oh wait, you can play Suzerainty with him.
Yeah, not the. Yeah, you can play Catan or whatever.
The Euro game. So yeah, I mean, that brings up another thing that I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, was that the skill set, the psychological model that the skill set implies about Harry, I think is not universal. Right? Like, the game does explicitly say at one point that you are the only person who is experiencing the voices of your different skills speaking to one another.
Yeah.
As this, like, fractured group of disparate voices that are trying to, like, or the psychomachia that's trying to drag you in one direction or the other. But that doesn't mean that everyone else doesn't have, like, a skill set, because what Trant's entire thing is that everyone does have these, right? So while I don't think that Kim has composure telling him what to do in any situation, but he's integrated those voices, right? I think a normal, non-shattered person in this
Doesn't hear the voices?
doesn't hear the voices, they've just integrated them.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Joyce will say that the fishing village is pornographically poor, which is something you get from one of your stats.
Oh, really?
So it's like maybe Joyce has passed that check too.
Right. She gets something similar. But like, I'm not sure everyone has the same label for their skills, but they have rough analogs for them. But that's like deep. That's cool. What does that mean? Right? Like, that has no so what. That is not a
Yeah, we don't get to, as the player, we don't get to interact with anyone as though that's true or not.
Yeah, it's not a testable hypothesis. It's over there with string theory. Right? Like, wouldn't it be interesting if this was true? Yes?
This game might be a simulation.
But I do like that yeah, Kim's authority is quite clearly unassailably high, which has interesting implications for the couple of times that you do pull rank on Kim.
Yes.
Right? Because it is not you... Well, actually, no, that's not even true. One of them is you explicitly telling him that as his superior officer, you are ordering him to dance. The other is when you prevent him from being shot by... And it's interesting that this is an authority check and not an esprit de corps check.
Yeah.
Because what you were doing there is you were wordlessly communicating to Kim that he is in danger. And that is something that depends on your shared profession as police officers and some kind of like sublingual ability to communicate. Right? And he either draws his own gun or takes your gun if it still has bullets and shoots.
Yeah. Whoever it is that's attacking him.
And that I thought that was strange that was an authority check, is basically what I wanted to get out there. Because that is you, like... That is Kim permitting you to pull authority, I feel. If you have tried to get him to tell you tell you a secret, and you find out that Kim is not going to do anything he doesn't want to do, ever, under any circumstances.
You can use Inland Empire to convince him that something is really going on with the case, though. That's
Really?
kind of fun. Yeah.
Oh, I never got that. Don't. Maybe I should have spent more time talking with Kim.
You can also discover feminism.
Yeah, I discovered that on my home playthrough. And it's like the first conversation you have with Gart.
Yeah.
Right? The inexplicable feminist agenda.
Because it's like, of course Harry wasn't a feminist. But now he is suddenly.
Yeah. Or maybe he was, right? Because it does come from inside you. Right? Like the conversation that opens it up is you like saying, well, you know, clearly the server left because I was a bad man. Right? It's something like that, right? Where you immediately like cop to why this person no longer works here. And you get it. right? And I looked it up, and apparently it gives you bonuses to dealing with men in positions of authority.
Yep.
Or was it because of something Gart said to you? It's been months.
It is a conversation with Gart. It's like right at the start.
Yeah. So coming all the way back to the tabula rasa, right? Which is probably not the term to be using here, because that usually refers to like a political act where, you zero something out, and now is year zero, and nothing came before this, and therefore it has no consequences.
Yeah.
Whatever we did to get here doesn't matter anymore, which is, quite a frightening thing. What Harry does is something quite different, which is where he has to reckon with all of his past behaviors, but he has no context for why he did the things that he did.
Yeah.
And you slowly have to discover why you did the things that you did, and none of it says anything terribly nice about you. And only after you have annihilated the self do you gain any ability to take back any kind of control over those behaviors, right? Like electrochemistry at the beginning of the game suggests to you that you may want to find cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, but it doesn't actually force you to.
No.
Right? I assume maybe if you let electrochemistry get completely out of control and you put many points into it, maybe it compels you to do your drugs.
I don't think so.
It doesn't. So
it always just suggests it.
Okay. So you have actually gained a measure of freedom from these voices.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, is that the effect of the prologue, where you come out of it and suddenly you are now in control? Right?
Yeah.
You as the player are now in control of Harry Dubois, whereas before everything that led up to him is mysterious to you and out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You were an evil ape duking it out on the world, but now that you have annihilated the self, you are in the driver's seat. Right? This outside perspective is now like maybe guiding you on a path and maybe saying no to things that you would have just unthinkingly said yes to previously. Right?
Mm-hmm. Like you, with Idiot Doom Spiral and the other drunks, you do the whole tequila sunset thing after driving your car into the sea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never got that.
Oh, yeah. Like you jumped your car over the canal, drove it into the sea, and then did some partying.
Yeah, because I assume somebody had to fish you out of your car.
No, you made it out yourself.
Oh, really? Well, good for us then. I guess that's what maxed out physical instrument can do.
Mm-hmm.
So you party with the people in the fishing village?
Yeah, just the drunks.
Just the drunks?
Yeah.
Huh. All right then. I enjoy that. But yeah, maybe that is where the game comes in. Is that the game is Harry contextualizing and recognizing all of these disparate voices and deciding which ones he's actually going to pay attention to, or which of these voices are the ones that's going to make up Harry from now on.
Yeah.
Rather than the person that he was, who was out of control, quite literally out of the player's control. That you are just dealing with the consequences of what Harry has done and where he is now.
Mm-hmm. And all of the thoughts we can put in the cabinet are like from the decisions we make. Like none of them are already in there. It's not pre-stocked.
Right. That we have to kind of like discover them.
Yeah.
I think the first one I got was volumetric shit compressor.
Yeah, you gotta get your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
So you can deal with the corpse.
Is the 2mm hole in the world, is that the Pale? Or is that completely unrelated to the Pale? Or is it
unrelated?
Unrelated? Okay.
It's related to why Martinez is weird.
Okay.
Much like the bug, the stick insect.
Okay. I assume that the church was built around it. Like, if
Yeah.
you find something that's scary in the world, you probably try to put something holy to contain it, right? That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the source of the blossoming pale. Hmm.
Yeah, it's something new.
Hmm. Like, I mean, you ask yourself, one of the tricks we learned in English is like, take a step back and ask what a thing is. What just happened in this interaction, right? Because taking a step back, looking at it, and rephrasing something is quite handy to you. What is the 2 millimeter hole in the world? It's a tiny wound,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, it is this thing that warps space around it that can be used quite accidentally to hurt people,
Yep.
and seems to have profound effects on the people that it does afflict, right? Like, what's his name, who lives in the church?
Tiago.
Diago, yeah, uh, has been transformed.
Yeah.
Not only like behaviorally, but apparently physiologically, right? Like, he is this thing that climbs now,
Yep.
and is quite comfortable climbing, and doesn't wear clothes anymore, even though it's cold in the church.
Yep.
Um, so, yeah, what is this wound in the world? Right? Like, it seems quite bad and quite dangerous, if nothing else. But is that the Foucault thing where you're like, I didn't say everything is bad, I said everything is dangerous, and that's how we need to approach it?
It's also the thing that wiped out the backups for Fortress Accident for their game.
Right, right. So it has an effect on, it has an electromagnetic presence.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I would need to play through the game a couple more times, I feel, before I could really feel qualified to talk about what the Pale is and what it means to the game. Because I'm not sure there's enough information on a single playthrough.
And I don't think it's relevant to the story.
Right. Is it set dressing?
Yeah.
Kind of like, is it, having played so much Destiny 2 in my life, I have now the sense of lore versus story, right? Where lore is stuff that happens outside the game and makes what happens inside the game seem interesting, but doesn't impact the gameplay in any meaningful way.
Yeah, because it's like the Pale is like a world scale problem, whereas what we're dealing with in Martinez is like a very focused, like it's just this little community.
Right. Everything happening in Martinez makes sense without needing the Pale there.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe the Pale offers some excuses or some explanations for things that happen in the city, but it doesn't. There would have been other explanations for those behavior without the Pale.
Yep.
Right? I was just so happy that I didn't know that you could fail the interaction with the Phasmid. Like, you could scare off the Phasmid quite easily, apparently. So thank you for encouraging me to take points in composure, because I think that's basically the only thing that allowed many of those checks to go forward, is having the ability to be cool when confronted with something that's quite frightening or mystical. So put points in composure, kids. You'll get the good ending. Because we actually got the photograph with the Phasmid of us reaching up to touch it, and we even got to lick the Phasmid.
Sugary.
I mean, in what universe does Lieutenant W. Freighter Harry Dubois not lick the cryptid?
Right?
It's like a toad, only more so. Maybe it's made out of drugs. The only one way to find out is if the Phasmid is made out of drugs or not is to lick it.
Oh.
Did somebody get Pale Runner?
Well then.
Intriguing. Intriguing.
Yeah, like I've got 75 hours in the game, and I still feel like there's like a few more mysteries. Like I think I found all of the areas and all the characters, but how they interact with each other can be a little obtuse.
Okay. Like I'm just very glad that Egghead formed no memories of our conversations, and we were able to infinitely take the path. The game itself calls it the Garden of Forking Paths through Egghead's dialogue tree.
Yeah.
Right, where you can just come back to this conversation over and over again until you get it right. Because I guess the implication is that Egghead has largely liquefied his brain on base and speed.
I think so. That's what happens when you turn everything up to 11.
And then hot glue it.
And then hot glue it, yeah. Sometimes that dialogue thing leads to some weird interactions because the options you picked are grayed out, but sometimes you can have branches that are unlocked deeper than those, so you're like, oh, I've already talked to this person, goodbye, but there is more there now.
Yeah, I didn't like that it wouldn't not gray out dialogue options if something had been unlocked, because I looked at a lot of dialogue options and realized, or I thought, that things were just already done.
Already done?
And you had to like tell me, no, that grayed out dialogue option will now have something new behind it. Which, not great UX, I guess.
Yeah.
I would level that as another criticism at the game. That it doesn't do a very good job of communicating to you what your options are some of the time.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've gotten out a lot of what I want here. Takeaway, I like the game. I like it a lot.
I like the game too. I'm glad it exists.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing how its genetic material propagates through other games in the coming years.
I want everyone to steal all the good bits.
Yeah. Please do steal all the good bits from games that you like. And then I guess we get to find out what you thought the good bits are.
Alright.
All right.
Scroll down, look at subs, and thank E-Block for cheering 500 bits. Starting off with Limbic System, there's a giant ball here. Evil Apes duking it out on the ball. You're one of them.
Malbeam came back for the 44th month. Volition, challenging. Gaze into the abyss that is chat.
Skylar Ringtail, 62 months. Been very much looking forward to this discussion. One of my favorite games of all time.
Pink Honey CMB sub for the 37th month, saying, love all y'all folks. Thank you.
The Bananarchist, 20 months. Thank you.
Sound Guy 0 Decibels came back for the 29th month. Thank you.
Vingrous, 7 months. So second playthrough starting next week.
Don't
No.
tempt me, Frodo.
Not. No.
Burnt Flapjack is a brand new sub. Welcome. Thank you.
Ragnar Hedden, 21 months. Thank you.
Dutch Moose came back for the 38th month. Thank you.
Taylor Lorton converted from a Prime sub to just a normal sub.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paranundrux came back for the 55th month. Thank you for introducing me to this game and for the delightful and insightful commentary on it. You two do both great. You two both do great work.
Vanriel, 100 bits. Just 100 bits.
Slapping down that dollar bill on the counter and walking away.
Yeah.
Love it. Geno Solo came back for the 4th month. Thank you.
Freakazoid, 6 months. Thank you.
Thermobaric Kitten came back for the 60th month. Thank you. Happy 5 year.
Sham the Wow, 30 months, and put words in box. Good work.
And EOS Dawn Titan is a brand, just subbed courtesy of Singo Muse.
Xanto69 cheered with 50 bits.
And Chef Steven came back for the 62nd month. Thank you.
The LK cheered 100 bits. You're both great in this show and in Heat Death. Thank you.
I'm enjoying DMing Heat Death quite a lot, although I realize I probably should start killing people.
Oh. Already locked down as I can get.
DMing Alien is not for the weak of, not for players who like their or not for GMs who like their characters.
Yeah, so I think we'll be back next week, and everything else is in flux. Check out Loading Ready Run on Twitter or the schedule page, loadingreadyrun.com/live for updates and changes as they come through.
Yeah. But Adam and Ben should be here shortly to Nope. They're going to be playing not Resident Evil 2.
Silent Hill.
Silent Hill 2. I always confuse those two properties, and I don't know why, because they're quite different.
Nah, it's all same.
They're
Fog zombies.
Yeah, the same thing.
Same thing.
They're on a console.
Yeah.
Same thing. But yeah, apparently this is the very good one. And you all should stick around and watch them play it. Wild cat. Bye-bye.